When you think of a gesture of friendship, you might think of some flowers. But how about a tree? Or two? Or 3,000? We are in Washington, D.C. for the annual cherry blossom display, welcoming spring. I've seen them maybe a dozen times in my life, so I've come up with ways on how best to see them. Also going to share with you a little bit about the history to help you appreciate them even more. In 1912, Japan gave about 3,000 cherry trees to the United States. And here we have a plaque, and it signifies where First Lady Helen Taft and the Japanese ambassador's wife planted the first cherry trees in 1912. There were two shipments, the first in 1910, but it was infected with insects and whatnot, so they had to burn the trees. So Japan then sent another batch in 1912. If you want to find this plaque, it's about 125 feet south of what's now Independence Avenue, and we're right near the bridge. If you're driving, you can park at East Potomac Park. If you want to park a little closer, you can pay 3-hour parking, no parking before 5 a.m. But just park a little further out and you can do it for free and stay as long as you want. If you park at East Potomac Park, you go through an underpass and voila, there's the Jefferson Memorial. There's a tidal basin. Time to set up the camera. We're here about half an hour before dawn. The only one here that I've seen are some joggers and these fellas. I'm dressed pretty warmly right now because even though the temperatures are going to be pretty warm later in the morning, keep in mind it is kind of chilly still. We're going to pass some of the world famous memorials along the way. So it's a nice way to see the sights of DC without all the congestion of the people. With so much eye candy here at the Tidal Basin, make sure to look where you're going because there's some low-hanging tree branches that will inflict some pain if you're not careful. Do watch out. We are not at peak bloom. Peak bloom means that 70% of the trees here are blooming, and it's not quite there yet. It's a few days off. But I wanted to shoot this vlog now so that if you're local or you want to drive over or plan for the future. But still people are out taking pictures even though it isn't quite peak bloom. Another fun way to check out the Tidal Basin besides being on foot are these paddle boats. You can rent them from 9 o'clock in the morning on weekends and weekdays 10 o'clock. It probably shouldn't come as any surprise that people want to pose with the cherry blossom trees, but the National Park Service has these signs out. Make sure you don't climb on them. You're not allowed to actually pick any of the blooms, as tempting as it might be. The National Park Service also says to try to walk around the roots because they would damage the trees, so we should do our part. If the water tempts you to jump in, don't. Since 1925, swimming has been banned for concerns of pollution and safety. What's amazing is that out of the 3,000 trees that were planted in 1912, 100 of them still exist. You'll see this 300-year-old stone lantern. It was presented to the United States by the Japanese ambassador in 1954. That was the 100th anniversary of a treaty between Japan and the United States. It's called the Treaty of Peace, Amity, and Commerce. Because in 1854, that's when Japan opened up their borders to more diplomatic and trade relations. And if you want to see the lantern, it's just a few feet away from that bronze plaque where the first trees were installed. When you walk around, you'll see the different ages of trees. This guy's really young. This one's older. It's because the National Park Service is constantly monitoring the tree's health and trying to maintain the beauty of this area. Lucky us. Yikes. Apparently there are bees nearby. Scary. Okay, we'll move along. If you get tired, you can always sit down. We'll take a nice leisurely walk around. And you can even see another memorial. That one's the MLK Memorial. And you can take a really nice picture with MLK Memorial in the background. Look at that with the cherry blossoms too. So we're here during sunrise. Sunset is equally beautiful, except there are a lot more people here. So now we're going to take a little detour. FDR Memorial. I'm not going to go into the history of this. This episode is more about the cherry blossoms. But I just wanted to show you the kind of sights you can see along the way. As if that lantern wasn't enough, how about this gift? It's a Japanese pagoda. It was installed 4 years later in 1958 by the mayor of Yokohama. If you want to see this guy, it's right next to the FDR Memorial. Every year since 1934, there has been something called the National Cherry Blossom Festival. It's sort of the signal that spring has arrived. And it held here every year except the few years around World War II. There's also a kite festival and a cherry blossom run. The problem is timing. Cherry blossom parade. It's always well after, weeks after the peak of the cherry blossoms. And if you're asking yourself what happened during the war when there was so much anti-Japanese sentiment in the United States, well, one night, right after the Pearl Harbor attack, vandals did cut down 4 of the trees. But that's the only known vandalism that has happened to these trees, except for the occasional beaver. You can go on the National Park Service website, and it'll list all the events that are happening in and around the cherry blossoms. If you come in 2025, you'll see construction going on. If you come certain years, you'll see flooding right along the path here. These are steps that are being taken to mitigate the flooding and subsequently the damage to the roots of the cherry trees. Apparently, the seawalls along the Tidal Basin have sunk about 5 feet in some places. So this construction, about 6,800 linear feet of the seawall, is expected to extend the life of the seawall by 100 years. And they hope to finish this off by 2026 for the 250th anniversary of America's independence. Don't let the construction deter you from continuing that walk around the tidal basin. As you can see, people are still biking and walking. In 1952, you could see that cycle of friendship continuing. World War II did quite a number on the cherry trees of Japan, and we sent them some budwood. I'm not sure how to do that because I'm not a horticulturalist. But anyway, the budwood from the original trees were sent back to Japan to restore their groves over there. As beautiful as they are, you probably are wondering whether or not the cherry blossoms have a scent, and not a strong one. So obviously you come here for the beauty, the visual beauty of the cherry blossoms, not because they smell intoxicating. Wander off the tidal basin a little bit, you'll pass the Bureau of Engraving, and we're heading towards the Washington Monument for one last view of some cherry trees donated by Japan. As if that gift wasn't enough, in 1965, Japan did it again. This time they gave 3,800 cherry trees. Those trees surround the Washington Monument, with the first one being planted by Lady Bird Johnson herself. See what's behind me? My favorite monument, it's the Jefferson Memorial, which means we're actually very close to where we started. 2 miles went quick. You can also take the metro here, and while that helps with the parking issue, you're still faced with mobs of people. But keep in mind, the metro doesn't open till 5 a.m. There's even a website you can use to find the cherry trees. Just type in your location, and you can be vectored into the nearest photo spot. One of my favorite places to see cherry blossoms, not named the Tidal Basin, is the Kenwood neighborhood in suburban Maryland. There are more than 1,200 trees. They go into full bloom about 3 to 4 days after the ones in the Tidal Basin. When I took my parents over there, it was literally like being showered with snow in the middle of spring. It's about a 30 to 45-minute drive from DC, or you can take the metro from the Bethesda Metro stop, but that's about a 1.5-mile walk from there. Other places you can go is the National Arboretum, which is in DC proper. The question I'm most asked is when to best see the cherry blossoms. The problem is that depends. Every year, the National Park Service makes its prediction when the peak bloom is. Even days leading up to that event, it could be changed because of weather. Rain, snow, ice, or even just temperatures. Warm temperatures can make them bloom faster.
And the other thing is they can only make that prediction 2 to 3 weeks out.
Historically, the peak bloom ranges anywhere between mid-March to mid-April.
If you're from out of town, really hard to plan. And by the time you make that decision, all the rooms are booked up. But the good news is that there were 12 varieties of cherry trees that were sent here from Japan to the United States. Chances are you're going to see some cherry trees blooming. It might not be the ones that you hope to see at the Tidal Basin, but you'll see some cherry trees. Hope my tips and my history lesson helped to inspire you to come see the cherry blossoms yourself. Thanks for joining me on Mary Goes Round the World.